just accept that Jesus somehow is far deeper than just a man who walked on the earth 2,000 years ago. His soul goes deep. He's the agent and sustainer even of creation. It also says he's the head of the church. And he got to be the head of the church because he's the one who died and came back to life, which is what started the church. The church is the group of people who are committed to the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And so because Jesus is the first one who walked that path, he's the head, the source, the originator. He's the one in charge. He's the founder. He's the CEO. He's the CFO. He's the CTO. He's everything. In fact, the next thing we see is that not just is Jesus head of all this stuff, the next line Paul uses is to say, so that in everything, Christ might have the supremacy. Jesus is supreme with all the fullness of God. Now, this is something I don't fully grasp, okay? Because God is huge. I mean, if science is telling us accurately that the universe is 15 billion light years across, or maybe, depending on how you do the math, 30 billion light years across. If the universe is that gigantic, and if the Milky Way really does have a billion stars in it, and if there really are a billion galaxies like the Milky Way, and if the universe is that big, and God made it all, and is everywhere at all the same time, He's huge. Now, how can the fullness of God dwell in Christ? Fullness. I think of the movie Aladdin, I saw it not too long ago, where the genie is describing how he's got immense power. Something like that. Because he's in a lamp, you know. Itty bitty living space. And I think God, gigantic in Jesus. That's pretty small. There's something about the human soul. Because if Jesus, fully human, born of a woman, here on earth, if he's fully human, as the Bible affirms he is over and over again, able to live, able to die, if he's human, and his soul can contain the fullness of God, there is more to the human soul than we understand. The soul can go deep, really deep. Far beyond what I think we're able to comprehend. We're going to strike this even a little bit more firmly just in a little bit, but let's read one last thing that it says about Jesus. It says, he's not just supreme with all the fullness of God, he's also the agent of reconciliation. Now check this out. If he created the universe, if he's in charge of the universe, if he holds all things together, why does the universe need to be reconciled back to God the Father? Look at verse 21 with me. Paul says, once you were alienated from God and were enemies in your minds because of your evil behavior. There was a time in your life where you were distant from God. Maybe that's today. Maybe you could say of yourself today, I still am feeling distant from God. The depth that He is, I'm not aware of. I'm distant from God. And Paul says the reason for alienation between you and God is evil behavior. A life outside of God's will. And all of us were like that at one point. Whether you're like that today or not, we all have been there. That's how we were born. We lived for a long time doing our own thing, and only those people who have recognized the redemption power of reconciliation, that Jesus can bring us back to God, those people can know God, but the rest of us are just alienated. Look at what it says. It says, you were alienated, but now He has reconciled you by Christ's physical body through death to present you holy in his sight, without blemish and free from accusation if you continue in your faith. Listen, Paul is saying there that Jesus, because of him and because of what he's done, he has provided reconciliation between us and God. We can be reconciled to God. So in Christ, the fullness of God exists to create, to sustain, and to restore. The power of God, the fullness of God exists in Christ to create, to sustain, and to restore. And I know some of you are in that place right now where you need new life created in you. And some of you are in a place right now where you're saying, God, I just need you to sustain me. And I know some of you are in a place right now where you're saying, God, I need you to restore me and bring me back. But Jesus has the power to do that. So that's how deep he is. My question for you and me to think about, just as we kind of draw this whole concept to a close, is how deep are you? How deep are you and I? Have you ever had an epiphany where all of a sudden you recognize something deeper about yourself? You know, I've heard people say this all the time. Some of you I know are into physical training, weightlifting, stuff like that. And when you're working with someone for the first time, or when you, for the first time, go out and exercise, quite often the next day you will hear someone say this phrase, man, I'm sore in places I never knew I had muscles. You know, I've got muscles I never knew existed before. And, you know, I'm sore on the inside part of my kneecap. Underneath here, I didn't even know I could be, you know, stuff like that, where all of a sudden you realize something more about yourself than you knew before because you worked it. Now you worked it and you realize something deeper about yourself. Well, something happened to me, you know, on an emotional level that I think all of you are going to think, you're going to think even worse of me after I show you this than you think right now, okay? Because I am an absolute loser when it comes to math, in the sense of I really like it. This, my friends, is the most beautiful thing in the world of math. I've read quotations on this that compare it to Shakespeare. I'm almost tearing up a little bit. If you know math, you know that this is amazing. I'm joking with you a little bit, but I'm serious, it is. Because E is a number no one cares about. I mean, it's 2.71835, something like that. No one really cares about it. I is an